Hello, I'm Blake Shy with the City of Stillwater, and I'm going to present to you this State of the City address. In this address, we'll go over a few key points with members of the admin team. We're going to go over the revenues and expenditures of the general fund and the SUA budget, and then we'll go over the budget forecast for the upcoming year and how the budget process works.
Hi, I'm Dan Galloway. I'm the city manager here with the City of Stillwater, and I would like to talk a little bit about where we are with the city, where we've been and where we're going. It's a good time of year to do that, to talk about the state of the city, because it's the time we start working on budget. City manager's office will be working on the budget, department heads, and I'm sure every staff member is going to be asked questions about what we need in our budget next year. When we talk about the budget, it's more than just money. We really have to look very critically and see, what did we accomplish this past year? What have we done in each department of the city? How many miles of streets have we done? How many parks have we taken care of? How many police calls we've made? In every department we have to look at. And then we look at what we would like to accomplish in the coming year. To do that, we have to look at the budget. And budget is pretty simple. It's just like your home budget. There's two questions. How much money do I think I'm going to have to spend? And how do I want to spend it? And with the city, it's a little complicated. Hopefully, most of us that have a job, the paycheck's the same every month, or every week, or every 2 weeks. So you know exactly how much money you're going to have in your budget. With the city, we have to estimate and guess on many of our things. When we look at the revenues of the city, we have a chart that has a lot of circles around this chart. And what this chart shows us is all the many sources where we receive some income into the city. The circle in the center represents the total of all money that we receive, and all the other circles show how much we get from each place. Obviously, the biggest source of income for the city is from the sale of electricity. It's a huge amount. We also have to pay a huge amount for the wholesale electricity, but it's a large source of income. Second is our sales tax, and third is water sales, and we go to wastewater charges. So it's pretty obvious when you look at the large circles. The majority of our income comes from the sale of utilities and from sales tax. There are many other important sources, all the way from grants to fees and fines and forfeitures, interest rates, transportation fees, and many, many more. Every penny that the city has as income is represented on this chart. Some sources, such as fees and rentals, are only 1/4%, but it's still an important amount. So we try to represent every particular source that we have. The real trick is trying to estimate what every one of these 20 or 30 sources of income might produce next year. When we have that number figured out, then we start having to look at how are we going to spend it. After we've once made our best estimate of how much sales tax are going to be in the next 12 months, and we've made our best estimates of how much water and electricity we might sell, then we begin to get an idea of how much money we have to allocate to all the different uses and departments. That's when the budget process really gets pretty tough. And that's when we rely on all the employees in every department. We need to know what things you need to work with, what your tools needs are, what your supply needs are, staffing workload times, and all of that has to be taken into account. But let's look at where our money goes. On this chart, much like on the revenues, this circle in the center of the chart is exactly the same size as on the revenue chart, because we only have so many dollars to spend. We don't have any more. And this shows where we spend them. And if you remember, the biggest source of income was selling electricity. But look at our biggest expense is buying the wholesale electricity. So it's a small margin of profit, if you want to use that word, but we do have a small margin of profit. We spend money for operation of the electric system, maintain the lines and generations, wastewater, water. You can see that our largest expenditures of funds are to maintain utilities. They're very, very labor intense. They're very capital intense. Pipes and sewer pipes and water pipes and storm drains and the equipment to repair them and electric poles. It's an extremely expensive operation. On the general fund side, of things on the city side, major expenditures for public safety. You can see police and fire services have fairly large circles on the chart. And transportation, development services, parks and recreation. We have copies of this chart, and you can find every single penny that the city spends will be on this chart. If it's not on this chart, we don't spend it. And so over the next few weeks, as we work with city employees, the city council, we want to bring all of this information together and again look at where we have been this year, see how we can allocate this money to do the best job for the overall city as we can in the coming year. It's not about any one department, it's about all of the city. And we try to allocate that money the best way we possibly can to do the best job for the people of Stillwater. So we look forward to working with all the staff and the public and the council, and looking forward to fiscal year 2014.
I'm Marcy Alexander, Chief Financial Officer for the City of Stillwater, and I'm going to talk to you about how we do our budget forecasting. During the current fiscal year, we will take a look at mid-year and make an estimate as to where we think those numbers will end up by the end of the fiscal year. That provides us with a good ending cash balance. We then take a look at our major revenues, sales tax, use tax, or utility revenues, to name a few. We look at our local economic conditions as well as national and state economic conditions, and then we provide a look at our numbers using our trend analysis, things that have happened to us in the past, things that we can predict for the future. Once we get a good number for our forecasted revenues, we can add that to our estimated ending balance, and that provides us with the number that we will be able to use to start our new budget year. That number will then be used to enable us to determine what expenditures will be placed in the budget for the next year.
Hi, I'm Dan Blankenship, Director of the Stillwater Utilities Authority. I'm here this afternoon at Boomer Lake Station. Boomer Lake Station is our power generation station that's been here since about 1950. We don't generate a lot of electricity here today, but because of our contract with the Grand River Dam Authority, we keep this place operational so that we can purchase power at a lower rate than if we didn't have it here. And so it's an integral part of what we do here at the SUA. What I'm here to talk to you about is the financial status of the SUA and how that plays into the financial status of the city. The Stillwater Utilities Authority is generates about 2/3 to 3/4 of all of the revenue for the city of Stillwater. And so in order for me to talk about the financial status of the Utility Authority, I need to talk a little bit about the revenues and then the other side of the equation, the expenditures. On the revenue side, in fiscal year 2012, the SUA generated approximately $70 million in revenues. 63 million of that was in rates and charges, and about 7 million was in sales tax. The Utility Authority actually receives 1 penny of sales tax on every dollar that is sold here in the city of Stillwater. The city of Stillwater itself collects 3.5%, but 2% goes to the general fund, 1% goes to the Utility Authority, and 0.5% goes for transportation. And so we're able to use that money for utility purposes. We, as a public utility authority or a public utility, we set our rates based on our cost of service. And our cost of service has really 3 components. Those 3 components are operations and maintenance, and that's what it costs us on an annual basis to operate and keep the utility systems operational. Depreciation is the second component, and then a rate of return is the third component. The depreciation is simply taking the value of the infrastructure and depreciating it or taking it off every year for an established lifespan. The rate of return allows us to collect money that we need in order to rebuild existing infrastructure, because simply old infrastructure, when you're infrastructure, existing infrastructure, when you put it in, costs a lot less than when you have to replace it many years down the road, and we need a mechanism to be able to account for that difference. As far as revenues go, we do have some designated revenues. Those are the water capital, the sewer capital, and the electric rate stabilization fund. In 1988, the Council voted to establish the rate stabilization fund, and via a formula that sets aside revenues that are used for major capital improvements in the electric utility. In 2009, the Council approved a resolution that set aside a portion of all the water and sewer rates to be used for basically the same purpose, to make improvements or to replace the major capital infrastructure in water and sewer. That pretty much addresses the revenue side of the picture, but on the expenditure side of the picture, we have on an annual basis the operating expenditures. And operating expenditures not only includes the costs of personnel, but it includes the cost of materials, services, and operating capital for all of the divisions of the SUA. And there's several divisions of the SUA: the electric division, the water and sewer division, the waste management division, customer service division, the environmental programs division, and for the past couple years, fleet has also been part of the SUA. And so we have to budget for all of those costs. Plus, we also cover the cost of support services, which include a portion of the city manager's office, human resources, information technology, legal, accounting, all of those support services that are necessary to operate the Utilities Authority. And so the part of the Utilities Authority's operating budget covers those. In fiscal year 2012, our operating budget was a little over approximately $43 million. And so you can see that there's a little bit of difference between our operating budget and the fees that we collect. Obviously, part of that is because of the depreciation that I talked about. Also, as part of it is the rate of return, but also the Utility Authority transfers to the general fund amount of money every year to assist the general fund to pay for services, general government services, that don't have a designated revenue source. In fiscal year 2012, the SUA transferred approximately $12 million to the general fund. So when you add up the transfer to the general fund, the depreciation, the rate of return, and the operating costs, then effectively you get to the revenue side, and that's what we design our revenues or our rates so that we ensure that we recover enough money to do those things to keep the utilities sustainable and transfer to the general fund. Where are we at in fiscal year 2013 currently? Well, every quarter, our Chief Financial Officer, Marcy Alexander, prepares a financial report for the financial review report for the City Council. Mid-year, I'm pleased to report that our utility revenues were at 61% of what was projected. So we were 50% through the year, and we have collected 61% of our projected revenues. Part of that can be attributed to the months of July, August, and September, when you've got high utility use. So not all of it is more than expected, but it is still a little bit higher than what we would anticipate this time of the year. In addition, the sales tax revenues are running 10% higher than projected, which is a good thing for both the city's budget and the SUA's budget. So from a revenue side, fiscal year 2013 has been a good year, at least the first half of it, and we would anticipate that that would continue on through the second half also. With regard to expenditures in 2013, mid-year we were only about 45% on expenditures, which is a good indication that our employees and our division managers are managing their budgets well and not overly spending. And so I think we're doing really, really well on expenditures. One question that I get asked a lot is, what's our number one single largest expenditure? And single largest expenditure for the SUA is purchase power, and that is buying electricity from the Grand River Dam Authority. And in fiscal year 12, we spent approximately $26 million on purchase power. But once again, because of this plant behind me, we're able to purchase that at a lower rate than if we didn't have this facility. And what it does is it, again, allows us to sell that power at a little bit lower rate to our customers. So the bottom line, the financial status of the SUA is very solid. We have good balances in our capital accounts. We've got a lot of projects, but we have set aside money to enable us to continue to do those and to run our operations and to make a transfer to the general fund. All in all, we're in solid shape here in the SUA.
The budget process is ongoing throughout the year. However, the main focus is when we adopt a new budget. Departmental staff and operations managers work together to formulate the items that are going to be included in the budget each year. Once satisfied at the staff level, the department will forward those items to the admin team for discussion and approval in the proposed budget. Once the admin team and the operations group is satisfied with the items, the proposed budget is then formulated and sent to the City Council. The City Council will then schedule several study sessions to examine the items and ask questions as necessary. When the City Council is satisfied that the items are finalized and ready for inclusion into the adopted budget, a public hearing is scheduled. At that time, the public is invited to attend and provide input on any additional items that they might like to see included in the budget, or to discuss other items that have already been proposed. Once the public hearing is concluded, the City Council will direct staff to finalize the budget in a document which is attached to a resolution and presented at a council meeting for adoption. Once the budget is adopted, it is forwarded to the State Auditor's Office, and it becomes effective July 1 of the upcoming fiscal year.
We hope this address provided some good information and helps generate some conversation in your department. If you have any questions about the budget process, please contact your operations group representative or a member of the administrative team. With your feedback, it'll help us with the budget process and also help us provide the best service to our residents.